Workers are manually welding roll cages inside Aptera's factory right now. That single detail reveals more than any polished press release ever could. It means they are not ready for full mass production just yet. But they are far closer than even their biggest skeptics predicted. The real story is hidden in this messy hands-on manufacturing phase. Let me walk you through what those factory cameras actually captured. Most people have no idea what early vehicle production truly looks like. It is not glamorous robots assembling perfect cars in complete silence. It is workers solving problems with their hands every single day. And that is exactly what makes this factory footage so valuable. 5 complete vehicle bodies stood in a row inside that warehouse. Not one lonely prototype gathering dust in a forgotten corner somewhere. 5 separate cars under construction simultaneously is a serious statement. That visual alone silenced countless online debates about their credibility. Skeptics claimed this company would never build real vehicles in numbers. But cameras don't lie, and those bodies looked very real. Yet here is the question nobody seems to be asking themselves. Why are workers still welding roll cages manually by hand right now? That answer reveals where this company actually stands in its journey. Manual welding suggests they have not reached full automation for that component. If they were ready for mass production, those parts would arrive pre-formed. Instead, workers are carefully welding each safety structure by hand today. This is not a negative observation, but rather an honest assessment. Every new manufacturer goes through this exact transitional messy phase. Tesla did it and Rivian did it, and now Aptera is doing it. The difference is Aptera is doing it while making solar-powered cars. Cars that theoretically never need to plug into a charging station. That is the part that makes this story genuinely worth paying attention to. Now let me explain what the factory footage actually shows in detail. A local news reporter gained rare access to the production facility recently. What she filmed changes how we should think about this company. Inside the warehouse, workers are using a specialized assembly clamping tool. Think of it as a giant frame that holds everything perfectly in place. Workers place body panels inside this frame and apply strong adhesive. Then they lock everything tight while the adhesive cures properly. This tool exists so every vehicle gets identical treatment during assembly. Every panel goes in the exact same spot every single time. Every joint receives the same pressure without any variation whatsoever. That consistency matters enormously when you want to scale production significantly. You cannot build tens of thousands of vehicles with inconsistent hand-built methods. Each car would be slightly different, and that creates massive quality problems. This clamping jig removes that guesswork from every single assembly step. It looks almost simple on camera but represents months of engineering work. Behind the scenes, countless decisions went into designing this specific tool. Originally, this process was supposed to happen at a different partner facility. Bringing it in-house instead was a surprisingly smart strategic decision. Shipping flat panels takes far less space than fully assembled vehicle shells. More pieces fit into a single container than bulky finished body shells. That means lower shipping costs and fewer containers needed for transport. It also means a faster path toward higher volume production output overall. Assembling everything locally gives them direct quality control from day one. If something goes wrong, they can fix it immediately without delays. They do not have to ship problems across oceans to get solutions. This single decision signals serious thinking about long-term manufacturing efficiency. It is not about chasing headlines or impressing investors with flashy concepts. It is about building a sustainable production system that actually works. The reporter explained that production follows a 12-step manufacturing process sequence. It almost looks like a mini assembly line inside that warehouse space. According to company leadership, once production fully ramps up operations, roughly 40 vehicles could be built during a single 8-hour shift. That is one car approximately every 12 minutes of production time. That number is serious for any young manufacturer just starting out. That is not hobbyist output or small batch boutique manufacturing anymore. That is the beginning of genuine industrial-scale vehicle production emerging. These vehicles do not look like anything currently driving on public roads. The design draws inspiration from spacecraft with smooth angular aerodynamic shapes. Everything about the exterior is built for maximum efficiency and range. But inside, the manufacturing itself looks surprisingly ordinary and grounded. It looks almost like any other small factory assembling physical products. That contrast is what makes this company interesting to watch right now. A wildly futuristic exterior built through very practical, repeatable manufacturing steps. That combination is unusual in the automotive industry today. The company had been quiet publicly for a significant period of time, but clearly they have not been sitting idle behind closed doors at all. Since the last major update, they have expanded operations quite significantly. Company leadership confirmed they are building several vehicles simultaneously right now. They call it their low-volume production line for testing purposes. That phrase matters because low-volume production is a critical bridge phase. You cannot jump straight from a single concept car to mass manufacturing. Companies need this middle stage to catch problems and refine processes. They need this phase to prove the design actually works in reality. One of the vehicles shown appeared to be a stripped-down test unit. It had racing-style seats with harness straps for driver safety. It had very little of the usual passenger interior comfort features. This is likely the same vehicle previously driven on long-distance trips. It still had solar panels on the exterior proving the technology works. However, it lacked the additional panels usually placed across the dashboard. That detail suggests this unit exists purely for mechanical performance testing. It is not for evaluating customer experience or interior comfort features. Other vehicles in the warehouse are described as validation testing units. These are essentially a real-world testing fleet for evaluation purposes. These are the cars you will eventually see driving on public roads. They will gather real data from real driving conditions over time. One surprising detail stood out to anyone paying close attention. Workers were seen manually welding the roll cage safety structure carefully. That detail tells us something important about their production journey status. If the roll cage were ready for mass production, it would arrive pre-formed. Manual welding suggests they have not reached large-scale automation yet. It is a small clue but reveals a lot about true production maturity. Right now, chassis components are reportedly being shipped in from partners. They are assembled together inside this facility with other components. Combined with the manual welding, this suggests a company still refining steps. None of this is negative, it is simply honest and unfiltered reality. Every new manufacturer goes through exactly this kind of transitional phase. It shows viewers an honest look at where things really stand today. Not marketing polish or carefully staged photo opportunities for investors. The wait list for one of these solar vehicles has reportedly grown significantly. It has grown to around 50,000 reservations from interested customers. That is a massive number for a company still working through challenges. It shows genuine public interest exists despite manufacturing capacity limitations. Demand appears to be outpacing supply right now, which is common. This is a common story for ambitious young companies in any industry. The bigger challenge is turning that interest into actual deliverable vehicles. People want cars they can drive home and use every single day. In a major development, the company became publicly traded recently. They are now listed on a major stock exchange for everyone to see. Going public gives access to new financial tools and funding options. It provides resources needed for scaling production to meet demand levels. Company leadership explained this helps purchase equipment and materials visible. Everything you see in that factory footage was funded through this process. Being public also raises visibility and draws attention from potential partners. Suppliers may feel more confident partnering with a public company now. Investors get a clearer window into performance and growth potential. That visibility can pressure a company to perform and deliver results. But it also opens doors that were previously closed to private startups. Elsewhere in the warehouse, stacks of finished solar panels sat ready. These panels were waiting to be installed onto vehicle exteriors properly. They covered several parts, including the hood, roof, and rear hatch. But not every panel spotted was meant for their own vehicle design. Some appeared to be built for an entirely different product entirely. A compact trailer-style unit that could be towed behind vehicles. This suggests the company is expanding solar technology beyond just cars. Diversifying into trailers could open additional revenue streams for them. It also shows their manufacturing capability is flexible and adaptable. They can serve multiple different product lines with the same equipment. That flexibility matters a great deal for surviving early growth stages. Depending entirely on one single product can be extremely risky. If demand shifts or slows unexpectedly, the company could struggle badly. Building panels for multiple product spreads that risk across different markets. That is smart strategy for any smaller company navigating uncertain waters. Elsewhere, older prototype vehicles were still visible in storage areas. One of these older designs used a distinctive honeycomb-style body. That was an earlier version of their solar vehicle technology back then. Another older vehicle had once been wrapped in gold for promotion. That particular trip was for international brand awareness and fundraising efforts. It reportedly did not generate the results the company originally hoped for. Seeing these older units next to newer models shows dramatic evolution clearly. Early concepts often look completely different from what eventually reaches customers. It is a reminder that progress rarely moves in a straight line. Setbacks, redesigns, and failed strategies are simply part of building something new. Despite those early struggles, the core idea has remained remarkably consistent. As long as the vehicle sits outside sunlight, quietly recharges the battery in sunny regions that can add roughly 40 miles of range daily. That is completely free energy from the sun every single day. For drivers who travel less than 30 miles daily, plugging in may vanish. That single detail is what makes this technology genuinely exciting. It is not about replacing every long road trip you might take. It is about erasing daily plugging in from your routine completely. Imagine never worrying about charging stations for your regular commute. The sun handles all of that automatically and quietly for you. That kind of quiet convenience could appeal to many new buyers. People who never considered an electric vehicle might change their minds. Company leadership has stated their goal for customer deliveries is clear. They aim to start delivering vehicles to customers sometime in 2026. Future plans reportedly include multiple different models with various prices. Different models will be priced based on battery size and driving range. That kind of tiered lineup mirrors traditional automakers' structure today. It gives customers flexibility to choose based on their personal habits. They can choose based on budget, driving needs, or daily routines. Watching all of this unfold has been genuinely exciting for followers. For months, updates were sparse and people wondered about progress. Many questioned whether real work was happening behind closed doors. This new footage answers that question clearly and definitively now. It shows a busy, active, and increasingly organized production environment inside. Multiple vehicles under construction with solar panels stacked and ready. Safety structures being carefully assembled by hand with attention. None of it looks glamorous or flashy from the outside perspective, but it looks real, practical, and genuinely in motion right now. That may be the most important takeaway from everything shown here. Solar-powered transportation is no longer just a concept on a whiteboard. It is happening right now inside a busy warehouse somewhere in California. It is happening one welded roll cage at a time with real workers. There will likely be more delays and more challenges along the way. That is simply the nature of building something entirely new from scratch. It happens inside a difficult, competitive, capital-intensive industry after all. But based on everything shown recently, momentum appears to be building steadily. 5 vehicles under construction simultaneously is not nothing at all. It is especially meaningful for a company once doubted by so many. A 12-step manufacturing process with a functioning assembly jig exists. A growing waitlist of 50,000 people all want these vehicles. Public trading status brings scrutiny, but it also brings necessary resources. These resources are needed to push production further toward mass scale. Whether this company eventually reaches full-scale production remains uncertain. But for now, the evidence points toward active problem-solving daily. They are not simply talking about solutions or making empty promises. They are building, testing, and preparing for real roads ahead. Cars that make their own fuel from sunlight sound almost impossible. Yet here they are being built and tested with real hardware. They are slowly being prepared for real roads sometime in the future. Whether you have followed this story for years or just heard about it, this recent footage offers a rare, honest look inside the process. It shows what early-stage vehicle manufacturing actually looks like today. It is messy, hands-on, and far from perfect execution right now. But it is undeniably real progress happening inside that warehouse. The next year will likely reveal whether this momentum translates into deliveries. Will vehicles actually reach everyday driveways at meaningful scale soon? Until then, one thing is clear beyond any reasonable doubt. Sunlight-powered cars just took a meaningful step forward recently. Keep watching this space because more updates are surely coming. Based on everything happening inside that warehouse, progress continues daily. The journey from prototype to production is never smooth or simple. But watching it happen in real time is genuinely fascinating to observe. Every weld, every panel, and every test brings them closer to reality. And that reality is solar-powered transportation becoming available for everyone. The manual welding today is temporary and will eventually become automated. But for now it tells an honest story of building something new. It tells a story of determination and problem solving under pressure. That story is worth paying attention to no matter what happens next, because whether they succeed or fail, the lessons are valuable. They are lessons about innovation, manufacturing, and pursuing ambitious dreams. And sometimes the most honest progress looks surprisingly unglamorous from outside, but that honesty is exactly what makes this story worth following closely. Keep watching this space because more updates are certainly coming soon. The factory cameras caught something real, and that matters enormously. 5 vehicles in production proves this is no longer just a fantasy. It proves that solar-powered cars are becoming a tangible reality now. The skeptics are growing quieter as the evidence continues piling up. The believers are growing more confident as production moves forward steadily. And everyone else is simply watching to see what happens next. This is the kind of story that defines emerging technology moments perfectly. It is uncertain, it is exciting, and it is unfolding right before us. That is why you should care about this factory footage today. That is why those manually welded roll cages actually matter so much. They represent the gap between where Aptera is and where they need to be. That gap is closing slowly but steadily with each passing day. And that is exactly how every successful manufacturing story actually begins. Not with perfection but with persistence and problem solving daily. Not with robots but with human hands learning the process first. And then scaling that process into something much bigger eventually. The solar panels are ready and the assembly line is taking shape now. The waitlist is growing and the testing fleet is being built carefully. The company is public and the resources are flowing in gradually. All the pieces are coming together inside that warehouse slowly. The question is whether they can assemble those pieces into a viable business. Whether they can deliver cars that people actually want to drive daily. Whether they can turn sunlight into a practical transportation solution for everyone. Only time will answer those questions with certainty and finality. But the evidence so far suggests they are moving in the right direction. They are solving problems that seemed impossible just a few years ago. They are building something that could change how we think about cars. And they are doing it while the whole world watches their progress closely. That is a remarkable achievement regardless of what happens down the road. That is why this story continues to captivate so many people globally. That is why the factory footage went viral and generated so much discussion. People want to believe that solar-powered cars are finally possible now. They want to believe that we can move beyond charging cables forever. And Aptera is giving them real reasons to believe that vision. One welded roll cage and one assembled panel at a time. That is the honest truth behind all the headlines and speculation. That is what the cameras actually captured inside that busy warehouse. And that is the story that deserves your attention and curiosity today. The future of transportation might just be taking shape right now. It might be happening in a factory that looks surprisingly ordinary. It might be happening with tools that seem simple and unremarkable. But the results could be extraordinary if everything comes together properly. So watch closely because the next year will tell us everything. It will tell us whether solar cars become real or remain a dream. Either way, the journey is absolutely worth following and understanding. Because innovation always looks messy before it looks revolutionary and polished. And Aptera is showing us exactly what that messy phase looks like. That is the real value of this factory footage we just saw. It is honest, it is unfiltered, and it is genuinely happening right now. That is more than most companies ever show the public at this stage. That transparency deserves recognition even if the execution is imperfect. So here is to the workers welding those roll cages by hand today. Here is to the engineers designing better processes for tomorrow. Here is to the dreamers who believe solar cars can actually work. And here is to everyone watching to see what happens next together. The story of Aptera is far from finished and still being written. But this chapter clearly shows progress that cannot be ignored anymore. The sun-powered car is coming whether you believe it or not. And that is the most exciting part of this entire story unfolding. Because sunlight is free and abundant, and available everywhere equally. Harnessing it for transportation could change everything about how we live. It could free us from oil dependency and charging infrastructure completely. It could make electric vehicles practical for people without home charging. It could accelerate the transition to sustainable transportation worldwide dramatically. That is the bigger picture behind those 5 vehicles in that warehouse. That is why the manual welding detail matters more than you think. It represents the beginning of something potentially world-changing entirely. And beginnings always look small and imperfect and unpolished from outside, but they grow into something much larger with time and effort. Aptera is in that beginning phase right now as we speak. The question is whether they will grow into something truly transformative eventually. I believe they have a real chance based on everything shown recently. The technology works and the manufacturing is taking shape steadily. The demand exists and the funding is now available publicly. The team is solving problems and learning from every single mistake. That is the formula for success in any manufacturing industry. It takes time and patience and relentless problem-solving effort. Aptera seems to have all of those ingredients in place currently. Now they just need to execute and deliver on their ambitious promises. The next year will determine whether they can actually do that successfully. But for now they have earned the right to be taken seriously. They have shown real cars in real production with real workers. That is more than most skeptics ever expected them to achieve. That is progress worth celebrating even with the challenges ahead. So keep watching this space because the best is yet to come. The sun-powered car is finally becoming a reality before our eyes. And that reality started with manually welded roll cages in a warehouse. That is the honest truth behind every great manufacturing success story. That is the story of Aptera today and tomorrow and beyond. Now you know what those factory cameras actually captured inside. Now you understand why those details matter more than headlines suggest. The future of transportation is being built one weld at a time, and that future looks brighter than most people ever imagined possible.